You start off with a girl whose name is already taken and you gotta follow your instincts, panic and name her something stupider. Well, the name may be stupid, but the strats to start out with are standard and well worth it, killing monsters on high difficulty. With this we get to level 2 and put a point into Inferno and get some strength. Now Inferno starts out worse than Firebolt, but it gets a whole lot better, which is why we will be investing more into it at level 3 as I balance my stat points with vitality. One of the great things about Inferno is that with damage, its negative enemy fire res also increases per level. To go along with it, I also got a poison shrine which got me strangling gas potions for some AoE later. As for fire damage, I got more Inferno at levels 4 and 5. Thanks to some well-placed XP shrines in the streamer server, I got to use the gas potions in the underground. I also got Blaze at level 6, which isn't so much for offense but more for mobility thanks to its over 30% faster run walk boost. Thus, it will only be a 1 point wonder and we will be going back to Inferno point pudding at level 7. We will be going more so at level 8, but you can see that the skill does leave a little bit to be desired still, especially if we are looking at high player level kills. However, for low player levels, the AoE and damage is still pretty satisfactory, not against the Countess though. That is where our strangling gas potions come in handy with an alternative source of damage. We can use the Countess leveling spree to make our Inferno stronger still by putting points into it at level 12 or to whatever level it takes us to get Tal Eth and Tyr Ral. For me, that was level 14. By the time I reached Andariel, I had reached level 16 and my Inferno had negative 17 enemy fire resistant implicit on it. That is good, but even better against a monster which spawns with negative 50 enemy fire resistance. That, ladies and gentlemen, is how an RBMK Andariel explodes. For Act 2, I like to run around with Blaze at player 7 and get all the waypoints while getting XP. That is because I will be doing all quests at players 1 since you can't really do them at higher player games who are further ahead of you in that game. The XP I can more than make up for in high player tomb runs, which, let's be honest, I was kinda struggling with. You really need skills to unleash the power of Inferno fully, and that's exactly why I got to level 19 and went to Akara to do some shopping. I reset her using this PvP arena, which you can buy from her till you find a staff with a +3 Inferno and 2 open sockets. With this I can make Leaf, which instantly gives me a +8 bonus and signs the death warrant of pretty much every monster that dared step in front of me. Now we really get to feel that negative enemy fire res to its fullest. It should be noted that I got teleport at level 18, as you all should if you are a responsible sorceress player, and level to 23.5 till Duriel. For the big bug, the strat is simple. Stuff the merc with throwing potions and stuff him more with healing potions when he's dying and fry Duriel's face off in the meantime. Did someone order a bug extra crispy? Now, since it took like 2 monsters in Act 3 to get to level 24, I didn't really level here because I felt I was appropriately leveled at this point. I just got to level 25 in the flare, incidentally, because the little critters are actually a pretty good source of XP. This is also where I ran out of points to put into Inferno, and thus I started putting points into its synergy, Firewall. Cool boots, by the way. Now I put my first point into Firewall at level 12, but it's okay if you missed that because it hasn't really been relevant to my offense until now. Holy mother of melting and uncle. That was Firewall's insane damage over time, coupled with like negative 26 enemy fire res that I get whenever I Inferno a monster. Needless to say, this gets real addicting real fast, and soon I was trying to time how fast I can kill any super unique or boss that stands in my way. I'm starting to see why this is the meta build for sorceress speedrunning. Shoutouts to Kirin PD2, by the way. I took this build after watching his full run, which you should also watch, while sending him lots of love and also kisses, because that's nice. Now chaos with this girl was better than I was first expecting it to be. You know, since fire build and whatnot. Turns out that when you damage with negative 26 enemy fire res and do a shit ton of it, things die. Even things that are okay. Yeah, remember kids, normal Diablo is good in the game. Thankfully, my untalented ass never checks the hardcore box in the character creation screen, and thus I can just kill him off subsequently, although not with as many style points as I would have liked. Ancients were fun. Now unfortunately, the Firewall strat works best on stationary targets. Thus it works on Madoc and to an extent on Talik. Korlik just loves being a giant pain in the butt by jumping all around for absolutely no reason. I mean, where is bro even going? He died a few seconds later, and so did normal Lister. Now sure, I had to go around the block with him just because he's so fat. The Firewall strat doesn't really play here since Lister doesn't stand still unless he's damaging something, which is probably not something we want happening. Now the Firewall strat thankfully does work on Bill because he loves standing straight. Bro thinks he's in a movie, and thus I got him out of there pretty quick. The rear ring was actually good. but required level 48, which means that I will pretty much not be using it for the entire next difficulty. Now the build was doing a bang up job and thus I saw no reason to change it. One thing that I did sought to change was my gear a bit to get some more plus skills. That I got by doing a lot of countess runs, not finding a Sol rune, having to cube up 3 amps and build a lore. Now doing damage way over the speed limit, I reached level 37 in Kata 1 and put another point into Firewall. By the way, back that up. Don't be stupid like me. Put a point into Fire Mastery as soon as you reach level 30 because with the additional plus skills that you have will give you a lot back for just a single point investment early. Even with my subpar gameplay, this girl absolutely slaps Andariel. Right on the ass. Not gonna lie. Little jealous. I reached level 38 after frying up some snakes and maxed the firewall synergy. The benefit of this is that you get a comically large firewall while fighting Duriel. However, fire has started to slow down a bit. No, it is still good. I mean, I did still kill Duriel in a pretty convincing fashion, but I was starting to worry about the future a bit. To put my mind at ease, I got myself an Act 5 mercenary with implicit BO to increase my defenses. In that vein, I also got +1 to Energy Shield Sorceress Orb in the Spider Forest, which also gave me some increased elemental absorption. Not that I really needed these upgrades, I can still diddy bop with the best of them. These are just nice to haves. I reached level 41 in the temple. Once you have put a point into mastery, it is actually better to max it out second since in PD2 it gives negative enemy fire resistance as well. I didn't think about this and just went ahead with the synergies first simply because they give more percentage increase in damage. Now, does this all matter in the end? Not really. Mephi is still taken care of, although not nearly as cleanly as in normal since he is a lot tankier and more dangerous in this difficulty, as it stands to reason. Now if Mephi was a bit rough, you can only imagine what chaos is gonna be like. Yikes. Not even letting me in the door. I killed Izzy to get some of my mojo back, that and also the 2 skills are kinda nice to have before the forge, which I got a Lem rune out of. Better than a kick in the gonads, I suppose. That we are gonna get in the chaos. Now all these melee necros are straight up fire immune, which is bad, but you can actually break fire immunity with Inferno, which is good, but you will also be doing less damage, which is bad. Ooh, a Wordstone shard. That's also good. What is also good is the fact that I resurrected my mercenary before the infector fight because he spawned with conviction and would have probably fried my face off if I didn't have a meat shield at the ready. That was a venture that Diablo also attempted to undertake, but Khan Solo proved his worth once again, staying alive, albeit with a few cheeky health potions from my side, but it allowed me to optimally kill Diablo with Firewall and Inferno. There you go, buddy. You earned that upgrade. Also, I guess someone screamed at me in chat and I actually put a point in at level 45 in Fire Mastery, and yes, these are streamed live. Link in the description for my second channel and also the Discord where you can get an update for my stream. Our Discord is pretty chill, you know, we talk about like ARPGs and vacation spots and food. We're dads basically, even if we don't have kids. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna change the name of the Discord to that. Diablo Dads. So if you want to channel your inner Diablo dad, join the chill side. Anywho, Ancients took their sweet ass time to die. It should be noted that I really haven't spec'd Static Field or really any skill outside of the Fire Tree other than Telekinesis or Teleport. That being said, this is all it took to take out Bale, quite like I did in normal. But there needs to be some change. The catalyst for this was actually an orb that I found while getting to Bale. +3 to Meteor Sorceress Orb. This I can Lazark and get 2 sockets. Lazark quests are not nearly as valuable thanks to corruptions and puzzle box existing, so I don't mind blowing my quest on this leaf upgrade. Except I'm not making a leaf, I'm making a neophyte to get myself some decent FCR frames to teleport around in hell. Also so that I can wield an Ancient's Pledge in my offhand for some acceptable resistance. Now, why Meteor? Firstly, it gives me a secondary source of damage. Along with fire and fire damage over time, the Meteor impact does physical damage to the monsters as well, which is good for fighting immunes. This along with Max Inferno and Max Fire Mastery, which is the optimal way to build this gal, hopefully I will kick some ass. Especially since I'm going in a tad under leveled, taking on hell at level 49 when I usually like to be around level 70 here. Now, none of the above really matters because the whole playthrough kind of flipped on its head when this dropped. Unique Grim Shield, which was a +2 lidless. That is best in slot stuff right there, folks, for your CTA offhands. Gull Rune Quick Sell OBO. Now, runes in this game have an intrinsic currency value decided by the market, something that you can track via this spreadsheet, which I will leave in the description. Girl at the time of recording was sitting at a worth of 25 worldstone shards. What that meant was that I could buy items worth 25 shards by exchanging it, and what did I buy? Why, the full Tal set, of course. Now, since this was earlier in the season, the pieces were a tad more expensive than I was expecting. I ended up dropping like 12 shards on the Ami and 10 on the armor. Thankfully, the rest was dirt cheap, and thus I was able to scrape together a pretty nice gear set for myself. One that unfortunately I cannot wear yet. The full Tal set requires at least level 71 to be worn, and thus I got to work. First stop, killing Andy. I used lower res on her to increase my kill speed with my relatively poor man's gear. Thankfully, I won't be carrying it for too long as my spot to XP farm is just outside the next town. That's right, Stony Tombs. Okay, let's actually not do that though. Now, I chose this place since it is relatively easy to get to and is packed with boss packs which are not fire immune, which made getting to level 71 from level 50 a pretty quick process. Definitely faster than if I would have gone for Bale/Nightmare Cow runs. Oh baby. Look at that phone book of a stat list. Skills, FCR, Res, MF. Early game sets are underrated as is, IMO, but this is definitely the cream of the crop. Something which will get me through hell pretty easy and carry through to early maps as well. What's more, my Stony exploits even netted me 2 near perfect life charms. One with 35 to life on a large charm and one with 19 to life on a small charm. Now, I wasn't really after any more XP during my exploits, rather just wanting to bum rush to the end of the game, but I did get to level 72 in the dungeon, and I also found Alder's armor, which rolled horribly on every single stat. Lovely. These can be worth a pretty penny if rolled with +2/+2 and you get a +1 corruption on them, so worth checking in the early game. Other than this, the only thing worth mentioning in Act 3 is the Mephisto chunking speed. The chunk is still pretty good, and so is the fact that I'm really not phased by being slowed by his cold attacks, since Meteor has a 0.5 second delay to its cast anyway, so casting at like 63 or the 37 breakpoint is pretty inconsequential. Also, I picked up one of these LCs which come with FCR somewhere along the way and sold this for a shard. I would recommend that you do the same to get those early trades going and get some early currency in the coffers. The boss killing capability was on full display on the Izzy fight. This girl is actually pretty decent at taking out single targets. Ooh, Key of Destruction. That's a nice bonus along with the 2 extra skill points that I get from the quest reward. Another nice bonus is an Ist rune in the coffers that I got from the Hellforge. Gull is the best that you can get here since it is about 10 worldstone shards better than an Ist mathematically, but I'm not going to sit here and complain about a rune that gets me a quarter of the way to infinity, theoretically speaking. Now, Chaos is an objectively hard place for this build. That is because 2 out of the 3 monster types here are naturally fire immune. Therefore, I have to rely on the physical damage of Meteor alone to deal with them. The speedrun actually respects to Ice Barrage at this point, and I may have considered doing the same had I not been overgeared. Tal's hard carries here through brute stats. The defense and the offense from the plus skills comes in huge here and actually makes this impossible seeming place pretty doable for my sorceress. Watching this Sorc chunk down a monster with Meteor physical damage never really gets old, especially if Diablo decides to stand in the fire dot for a prolonged period of time, which only accelerates his demise. Now, Ancients were standard fare for the most part. I was blasting them with meteors as I moved away from them. Madog died first because he's squishy. Korlik died next, which makes sense since he has the second least fire resistance, and I also cornered him and rained meteors on him while he tried his best, I think. But things took a turn for the worse when I ran out of health potions with Talik still alive, and the reason that is scary is because he's very capable of doing this. So, how has your day been, chat? I went in when I regened up to like half of my life globe and actually was able to catch him coming in with a few meteors. What an absolute god. I mean, a god should have probably just bought a couple extra health potions, but whatever, man. Now, this brings us to the brink of the campaign, but we are far from done with this girl. Now, I don't know how much of the plan I've mentioned till now, but this girl is supposed to be my bossing character of the season. And of course, to go along with that, I need a mapper as well. That I plan to make in the next episode, which is going to be the perfect end to PD2 Season 12. But to get her a head start, I want to give her an item that any elemental character would dream of having: infinity. Now how do we get from hell to infinity? Why, maps, of course. Welcome to the glorious endgame of Project Diablo 2. Now to actually get started with the maps, we need to get to level 80, and thus I started the only way I know how, blasting some stony tombs. Now it did not take me long to realize that this place was slow to give XP and slower to drop anything of value. Thus, thanks to a well-placed comment chat, I switched over to the Drifter Cavern, and what ensued? Actually, I'll let Chinmay from the livestream take care of this one for me. Okay. Alright. Yep. Dude. Thank you, Eric. Great freaking suggestion, man. Oh my god. Yeah, very eloquently put indeed. So if you want to see the second coming of Oscar Wilde playing ARPGs every day, link in the description. Now that sham gets me off to a pretty big head start in my road to infinity, as that was worth 2.25 high runes and a burr was worth 3. Thus it would behoove me to run anything but this tiny little place, right? Well, actually, terror zones. So this is how you are quote-unquote supposed to progress with your character. Once you clear the campaign, jump into your nearest terror zone and start blasting. These obviously match monsters to your current level, giving you greater XP, and also have a pretty decent chance to drop nice stuff like an angel, like some hellmouths, and like this LC with 7 IAS, coffers in the bank. The terror zones are also nice in the fact that they have a decent chance of dropping worldstone shards, maps, and if you're lucky, some big pulls, like this Reaper's Toll. Now I didn't realize at the time how huge this was, but this really is perfect for my build. They have switched the aura from Decrep to Amp at this mod, and honestly that helps me more than it hurts, since putting this on a merc, especially with treachery armor, to give him that insane attack speed and Tal's helm, I give him 23% lifesteal, a decent chance to hit fast, and the most important of all, a buff to my own damage with that amp damage, basically doubling the physical impact of my meteors. This is Sewers, by the way, the best map in the game. Like, you can have your opinion about, like, you know, ooh, Blood Moon, like ooh goo 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 cow density. No, sorry, this is the best map in the game. Although I was pretty disappointed when it did this to me. Yeah. If that was unique, that would have given me a Scrooge McDuck levels of wealth, because Templar's Might is insane in this game. This though, throw this out immediately. Next up, I got an upgrade for my Ancient's Pledge in the form of a round shield, which is Moser's with 25 all res, higher block chance, and 2 open sockets. Now with full tals, I was already pretty overcapped with res, so all this really does for me is give me a little more block to deflect physical hits. Next up, I found something that would have given me a lot of wealth as well, as it was potentially a best in slot weapon for an Arctic Blast Druid, Frostwind. But to make it best in slot, you need the 4 socket Corruption, and you also need the base to not break and turn into a random rare. Guess I hoped for too much there. Next, I found some rare boots, faster run walk, tri-res, and faster hit recovery, and I also corrupted additional fire res on it. But it was only 20 faster run walk. You might think that that is a little thing, but that 10% is a huge difference. Faster run walk is the most important stat on boots, and people shopping for some would never even consider putting the filter down below the max 30, but this guy did. I will take the 0.5 high runes. Thank you very much. Something I found for trade were some percentage skill damage charms. These always sell for a few shards here and there and are useful to keep the currency flowing. Another cool charm I found was 5% IAS and percentage faster run walk. Next up though was a big pull for the trade market. Now if this would have rolled right and been Veil of Steel, it would have been 3 high runes straight up, but it was Nightwings, and that too not a very pleasant Nightwings, and that too with a corruption that was pretty horrendous, 1 socket only, so you can't even p-box it. With that, still sold for a gull plus. That's the power of unique spired helm, I guess. Even when everything goes wrong, you still make a gull out of it. More money in the form of a Skiller Grand Charm, +1 to summoning skills for the Necro. These are decently in demand early in the season, so I got a Mal for mine. Another Mal, this time in the form of a drop from my favorite map event, the Treasure Fallen. I have gotten a Jaw and a Low from this guy in the same map, so I always have high hopes whenever I see him pop up. Now thanks to that Mal, the Ist I found earlier and the Vex I traded for as well, I was pretty close to a CTA. This inspired me to go out of my way to actually get it, albeit for pretty expensive, but Ohm runes were going for like 0.8 at the time. And hey, if I were to be able to craft a +6, I would have been able to get a burr back for it. Or just a box standard +3. Well, I guess CTA is better than no CTA, right? Next up, I found some decent uniques in the form of this razor tail and this Andy's head. This hurt though. Oof. That's a potential for 2+ high runes down the drain. Well, complaining strats OP because next up I found some guaranteed high runes, 0.75 to be exact, and Ohm rune from Westmarch. Next up I found something that you would expect is worse than the Necro alternative, but such is the power of the zoo. +1 to summoning for Druid for an Ist rune. Next up I found a dwarf which is worth like, well, nothing now. World's first here, a map boss actually dropped something good as the Demon Road Take Me Home boss dropped me an Andy's head, and this one didn't get 3 open sockets, but it didn't break either. See all the nice things that happen when we don't turn useful uniques into random rares? Some of the nice drops that I got I kept for my future girls instead of selling for profit. Most of them were LCs that I got with percentage lightning damage, which will be useful for my upcoming Javazon. Another thing that would have been great for my Javazon was this Geed event. This was a pretty solid selection that Geed was carrying with the potential to get a Veil of Steel, Gores, and Titans / Thunderstroke. What I got was flipping True Silver, Shadow Dancers, and Valkyrie's Wing. Ouch. The only thing really worth even keeping for a trade is this Valkyrie Wing with +2 Amazon skills and 2 open sockets from the Corrupt. 20 shards is 20 shards. Well, at least I found things that would be useful for some character. 15 Fire Rest Mages for my current girl. You know what? After that run of luck, I will gladly take these. Given the amount of Necros that I've seen running around the ladder, I also will gladly take this PNB skiller for 10 Worldstone shards. Next up, Andy doing what Andy does best, looking sexy and dropping Shakos. Now I did try putting this on this girl's head, but the hit from taking off full piece tals was too much. Javazon find, I guess. Here's another. +1 to javelin skills with 15 to life. Skillers are like super cheap on the market, and thus selling this would only net me like 15 shards, so I'm better off just keeping it for my future girl. And then So I knew they had made all the super rare uniques like super useful in this game. Tyrael's Might, Templar's Might, what have you, but I really never had heard anything about Astrians, and it looked alright. Also, mine was Eth, so that probably is not something that you want in a melee weapon that you plan to wield yourself. But then I got 4 sockets on it. But it's Eth, right? There's no way this sells. I just set it up for offer expecting like 10 shards for it if I was lucky. Well, I certainly was. I guess you can call that luck. I would love to know what the guy was planning to use it for, but I can't really complain since I got like 2.5 high runes for it. From there, it was all about getting a guy who would take all this currency that I had and would convert it into something that I was chasing, burr runes. This was actually quite lucky in finding one guy who sold me both burrs for my Cham, Ohm, Ja, Vex, and shards. A moment of silence, please. The portal to infinite possibilities has been unlocked, boys. Now this is something my Javazon is going to appreciate when I get her up and running in the next one. Thanks for watching. Yours truly, with love.